the role of boards in owner-led companies. Welcome to the Better Boards podcast series, the podcast for chairs, CEOs, non-executive directors, company secretaries, and their advisors. Every episode is filled with practical insights and learnings from those inside boardrooms. We discuss what really matters and highlight actionable steps you can take to enhance the performance of your board. As listeners know, and thank you for coping with this gentle German accent, we have a lot of companies in Germany that belong to the German Mittelstand. Owner-led organizations are the backbone of economies. Not only in Germany, but in Germany it's particularly clear, but also in almost any other country. It's not the listed companies. The listed companies make up a small proportion of economic activity. So owner-led organizations really do matter. And in this podcast, we focus on these type of companies, where the main stakeholder is in the room. And once you master to deal within the boardroom of an owner-led organization, you can master impact, and I believe in almost any board. I'm delighted to talk with Tina Mavraki. She brings 27 years of board, finance and natural resource experience. She's a chartered portfolio director and held senior roles at Morgan Stanley, Citi and Noble Group, where she scaled up multi-billion-dollar business. Her board portfolio spans FTSE 100 candidates and also other organizations in the finance industry, in the utilities industry, and in the natural resource industry. So I'm really delighted to speak with her. Tina, thank you so much for making time to contribute to the Better Boards podcast series.
It's an absolute pleasure to be here, Sabine, and it's an absolute pleasure to get to know your great work better.
That's fantastic. But first of all, we want to hear a bit more from you. So
excellent.
Let's jump straight in. Owner-led companies. Why should owners care and go through all the trouble to have a board? From your perspective, you served on such boards. What's the benefit of a board for owner-led companies?
So this is a very interesting topic, and I've come at it from lots of different angles, whether it is from a utilities perspective, industry, or a metals perspective, private equity-led, or in the shipping industry that I've been involved in, and in the financial services industry as well. Invariably, owners invite a board into their structure because they're looking to make a transformation. That's really the key here. Something is about to change, and they need an enlarged understanding, an enlarged pool of talent, pool of direction, pool of help in order to make this happen. So this transformation can take any form. It could be anything from, first of all, graduating from family dynamics, where you have to start putting more structure. When you put more structure, you put more process. You put more process, you put more access into the banking world, into additional shareholders, into a different pool of funders, basically. Mm-hmm. And then you have capital markets events like a resale or an IPO or a relisting. And therefore, this company transformation happens with the support of a very senior and experienced team that will help you unlock specific issues, connect the dots in a congruent way, and enable that vision to take to transpire.
What do you think are really, to spell it out, you alluded to it, but what are really the benefits? Where do you see, what do owners also get from this?
What owners get out of this is perspective, first of all. They have a vision. That vision can be realized in lots of different ways. But the resources are limited. There are the idiosyncrasies of the owner, and you have a certain amount of ambition. In order to line these three up in a way that you can get a coherent plan out of them, that's where you can get a board. That board will have invariably proven leadership. That proven leadership will be available in different parts of an organizational structure that you actually need as a company. And therefore, these people help you synthesize the skill, they synthesize the perspective, help you hone into certain depths when it comes to something that you need to change in the organization. And they provide the emotional, mental, tactical support in order to make this happen.
You know boards of listed organizations, you worked with owner-led organizations. What makes boards of owner-led organizations really different from those of listed organizations in your perspective?
So in my experience, the difference with owner-led boards as opposed to all other boards is that you actually have the dominant stakeholder in the room. You're actually conversing with that person, him or her. That person represents the past of the organization and pretty much has the vision of the future of the organization. So all of a sudden things become much more idiosyncratic and they become more personal. So that's the difference. That's the main difference, I would say.
And given that there is this difference, what impact does it really have on board dynamics?
If I were to summarize the board dynamics, I would summarize them on the basis of two things. The first is boundaries. How do you help the founder to expand boundaries? How, at the same time as working with the founder's boundaries? And the second thing is succession. How do you help the founder put a credible succession plan in place to get new leadership in place as different leaders are needed for different stage of the organization, and around the core team as well. Are these people fit for the future of the organization? What changes do you need to make there? If I want to go back to boundaries is the most beautiful tension you can get. It's the most beautiful growth tension you can get in owner-led organizations, in the sense that you have someone who is extremely successful. It's the reason why you're both there. At the same time, this person is in an expansion mode, is in a transition mode. How do you help lean on the strengths of that founder and at the same time help to connect the changes that need to make and realize the vision? So it's a beautiful tension in these boundaries. Growth versus the personal boundaries of the owner.
I see that. What I was after is also to understand a little bit more the behaviors you have seen, the behaviors that shape really positive dynamics in owner-led organizations, yeah?
I hear you. So absolutely. So dynamics, in terms of dynamics, because things are, they are invariably more personal. The main thing that you need to work on is trust. And how do you build that trust? You have to earn that trust, first of all. Yes, you come with your credibility, the credibility of your experience, the credibility of your network, your contacts, your impact in the market so far. But then the question is, how do you translate that credibility into a trusting relationship with the founder? The best way to do that is, first of all, to show up. And what I mean by showing up is lean into the organization, understand the organization. What are the key strengths? What are the key steps that need to take place in order to get to the next step that the founder has a vision for? Walk the floor, understand who the key players are in the organization, who are the dominant kind of key holders, if you will, that accelerate things or might push things back. Understand, walk around the factories, walk around the shop floor, as we say, to understand how does that company make money? How does that company produce the goods and services? And when you have all that, then you have the ability to structure your interventions, make them much more relevant, tailor them, and also understand how do you prioritize your interventions? And when you have a sense of priority that syncs with the idiosyncrasy of the founder and the dynamics of the founder, you have the knowledge and you bring in the skill from the previous kind of run that you have in your career, then that's how you manage to build that trust. So it's an involved process. Yeah.
You said something that really rang a bell, which is understanding how the company actually makes money.
Absolutely.
What are the levers that the company makes money? And I can recall when I did leadership advisory work, the number of times I asked people from top management. Actually, the simple question at the start of an assignment, how does a company make money? And I very often got the answer of a politician where it was clear, that this person couldn't actually answer this simple question, which was shocking. Yeah.
Shocking it is, but also it's a very interesting situation because as a director, you're walking in with a cheat sheet, and that cheat sheet comes from the reference governance code of the company, the reference governance code of the jurisdiction, and unavoidably directors have to play a dual role here. They need to focus on process, but also they need to focus on outcomes. And sometimes when the process is so intense, you might end up losing sight of the outcomes, which is what your question, the question that you're asking. So I understand that tension, and it's always important to keep that North Star. How do we make money? The way we make money gives us a sense of what is most material. And when you understand what is most material, then you can go back to the reference code and understand how do I adjust and amplify the process that will safeguard the organization and see it through to the next level.
Now, having talked of dynamics, people who might think, that would actually be quite entrepreneurial and quite exciting to get involved in such a board. So before they really think about it more, let's talk a little bit about what do you think are the winning characteristics of board directors in owner-led organizations? What do they really need to bring to the table?
So what they really need to bring to the table is time and involvement. I think that's the first thing. You really need to sit down, understand the organization very, very well, understand the dynamics, understand the founder, obviously, understand the key people around the founder, and understand what they really mean by the vision that they put in place. How does that translate in practice? Then you need to understand very intimately the founder herself or himself. What are the key attributes that have brought this person here, and what will help them, which attributes will help them realize that vision, and which attributes will need some more mentoring and advice on. And the third thing is you really need to lean into the rest of the board, because some interventions will be easier than others, and the difficult interventions have to take place because that's the only way that you can have impact in the organization. So when you lean in to the rest of the board, sometimes you need to orchestrate some interventions. There are some sensitive issues you need to talk about, like what we said, boundaries, succession planning, risk management on certain occasions. And therefore, that will help you be more successful in your impact. It will help you be more successful to understand when to intervene, what priorities to set, and what good looks like in year 1, year 2, year 3, until you get to realizing that vision.
Surely it's not easy. I mean, if you basically question something that the owner had done, and you basically think that needs to be changed, that probably doesn't always go down easily with an owner.
No. And what you really need to understand here is that you're looking at someone very, very successful. So if you have confirmation bias, if you will, you have that person that has proven that success right in front of you. So unavoidably, they will know a lot, in fact, on many occasions, much, much more than you know about the business. So that's where you need to sit back and with patience understand, again, back to connecting the dots in a congruent way, what he or she is saying versus where he or she wants to go, what are the interim steps that need to take place. And let's not forget, these people, to be successful, you need to carry a lot of weight with you. You're carrying the weight of the organization. Whatever structures you have in place, the ultimate responsibility stays with you. These are very busy people. These are very overburdened people. And these interventions and the way you make them help to take off that weight. They unlock opportunities for them. So it's not a question of difficulty, how to make these interventions. It's the skill that you need to put in place to understand where this intervention might actually not be the right one or not the timely one, or connect the dots in a way that actually speak to the most critical priorities of the founder. So, impact on stock price, for instance, impact of these interventions on your key client base. That's where you have to connect these interventions in a way that is very practical and will give you a sense of what this will look like after the intervention has been made.
Now, some people might listen to this and think, well, there's the option of having a real board, a big board, let's call it a board. Mm-hmm. Maybe some owner-led organizations say, I'm not sure if I want all of this trouble. And let me just go for an advisory board. Where do you see the advantages and disadvantages of going down the route of an advisory board?
So I like advisory boards very much. Why do I say that? Because they are a beautiful forum that can host skills that are extremely relevant to the vision of the organization, but might not be able to translate into a board seat. So a lot of boards right now are grappling with the issue of technology. Mm-hmm. How do I find a well-rounded director with the requisite seniority and the requisite experience that can at the same time synchronize with the rest of the board? Which is the reason why you don't find that many technology experts on the board. Some of these people are extremely successful and they don't want to leave their executive role or their founding position in order to come join a board. Well, this is where you can host these expert people in an advisory board. You can dive very, very deeply into certain issues that you might not be able to cover during a board understanding, a board setup. And you can alternate expertise as well in a way that will get you into depth, get you into exploring different angles that might not, the board process might not enable you to do. So I'm totally in favor of advisory boards. I guess the downside of all this is that they remain advisors. They're not directors. They are not there to see through the effects of that advice. And therefore, some things are feasible that they propose, other things are not necessarily feasible or not necessarily feasible in the timing that the advisory board might suggest.
Fantastic. We could continue, but I'm looking at the watch and we have to come to an end. And at the end, there's always this horrible question. What are the 3 things our listeners should take away from this conversation?
I love it that you say this is a horrible question, but in fact, this is probably the best question of the whole session, right? It's good to have 3 takeaways, I guess, from this, which is why I love the question that you're asking here. You have to take the time. You have to take the time in a founder-led board to understand the operating environment, to understand the priorities, to understand the players, and to understand when and how to intervene. But the only thing that is a guiding principle here is that you have to lean into the board process. Board impact here is visible, it's critical, it's direct, and the feedback is immediate. So you have to take the time to lean in and make the impact. I hope that helps.
Fantastic, Tina. Thank you so much for contributing to the Better Boards podcast series.
Thank you so much for having me with you, Sabine.
This podcast episode is part of the Better Boards podcast series, brought to you by Better Boards, the provider of board evaluation solutions. Get in touch if you are interested in learning more about our work or would like to see a demo of our innovative board evaluation platform, which clients use both for their internal and also as part of a fully facilitated external evaluation. We at Better Boards are really always delighted to hear from you. You can best reach us at info@better-boards.com. Thank you for listening.